Your brother rules in your place now, which means that your life is in danger.
Throughout Season 2 of House of the Dragon, Aegon has had only one friend worth talking about, and it's Larys Strong, his master of whisperers, trying to keep him alive by protecting him from himself. He delivered him justice by letting Aegon handle blood with a mace to the face over and over again. He sped up Aegon's physio routine, and he struck gold when Aemond actually tried to kill his brother, although he might have guessed considering his own sins. Right now, Larys is Aegon's only friend, and he's fool enough to believe that, but you're just as foolish as him if you believe it as well. The truth is, Larys Clubfoot is loyal to one man alone, and that's Larys Clubfoot. He serves no one but his own ambition, and saving Aegon was just the latest phase in his plan. What plan, you ask? His plan to capture the Iron Throne, of course. And how will he do that? Well, the clues are already there for us to put together, and in this video, we'll walk you guys through them. So spoiler alert, because trust us when we say, there will be a lot of those in this video. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Another is that his grace was outwitted by his counselors and persuaded to fly to war with Sir Criston.
Phase 1. Establishing authority and trust. The first step to making any sort of play for the Iron Throne is to get near it, politically and literally. The most powerful governing body in the Seven Kingdoms is located in the Red Keep, and all of those who are named to it are required to serve from the royal court. Members of the small council don't just control the royal administration, they also have access to the royal family, which is where Larys' plan started off from. Larys was born with a clubfoot so bad his dad thought Alice Rivers cursed him at birth. He's never been disowned, but he has never been especially loved either. His brother Harwin is warm enough to him, but as a cripple and a second son, Larys always knew he would have to make his own way in the world. The perfect opportunity presented itself to him on a silver platter, when his father was named to the small council as King Viserys, Master of Laws, and then raised to be Hand of the King. Larys got all the access he needed to the secrets of the most powerful members of Westerosi nobility, and he started doing what he does best, observing and spinning his web of lies. Through his observations, he learned that Rhaenyra and Alicent's relationship was tenuous at best, so he approached both of them with bait, seeing which one would bite. Larys knew Viserys would never give him a place at the small council, considering his distaste for espionage, but he also knew that the others would have use of him. In the books, Viserys must have had a more sadistic side to him, because Larys is named Lord Confessor under his reign. When Alicent bit into his bait, he went all out in an attempt to secure her favor. Larys orchestrated his own father and brother's demise using prisoners he found in King's Landing's dungeons, whom he then turned into mutes and his personal enforcers. He did this not only to facilitate the return of his father as Hand, but also to become the Lord of Harrenhal. Black Heron's folly might have been an excessive monstrosity, but in another life, it would have been the ideal seat for a royal capital. Harrenhal was large and its holdings larger. House Strong became really rich because of it, and the first thing Larys did as acting lord was to move his wealth into the Iron Bank. He must have known that he would need to cut off his great uncle's funding, considering his fondness for his nephew and his knowledge of the fact that lighting a fire that big was pretty much impossible at Harrenhal accidentally. Simon must have figured it out when Larys moved the money, if not sooner, and we can see why he would betray the guy. Alicent too was horrified by his actions at first, but in the end, she did reward him as she said she would. Larys became her personal spy master, helping expose Mysaria's spies within her household, in exchange for not-so-long peeks at her feet. Alicent must have thought he would have stayed loyal to her because of their shared secret, but the truth is, Larys' loyalty is to himself. Before he gives her this information, he helps the Greens coup by taking down an escaping Lord Alan Caswell, and offers his services to Otto Hightower as well. When Alicent gives him the green light before Otto can respond to his offer, he burns Mysaria's manse and forces her to flee to Dragonstone. Larys then plants spies loyal to him and Alicent only within the Red Keep, executing all others. But when he goes to tell her that, he notices her distance from him. This alone is all the hint he needs to figure out he's lost Alicent to Criston Cole. Shady sexual favors stand no chance in the face of forbidden love, so Larys immediately moves to his next mark. His flattery and support to King Aegon have been a testament to his silver tongue. He managed to make a mockery sound like sage advice when he pretty much talked Aegon down from flying into battle. It didn't work, but Larys wasn't responsible for that. He gave the king his best advice. When he saw the tensions rise between Aegon and Otto, he saw his opportunity for a new path to power. Otto had always been cautious with Larys, never allowing him to gain too much power, and Alicent was icing him out as well. If he wanted to maintain his influence, he needed someone else, and the tempestuous, impulsive, and highly emotional Aegon was just the right person for him. Larys witnessed Aegon's first first audience as king, and noted that while the boy meant to do good, he didn't know how to, and in the end, agreed with whatever someone more experienced than him told him to do. His tension with Otto meant that there was space open beside his grace yet, and Larys abused that opening maliciously. He intercepted Aegon right after the audience and pulled him aside. He compared him to Jaehaerys, which is a total lie, and then planted the seed of changing the hand of the king in his brain. Also, when he was trying to get Aegon to not fly out to war, he told him that he'd heard whispers that Aemond and Alicent were going to try to replace him. Aegon was drunk and paranoid, and knew Aemond well enough to accept his lie at face value. And just like that, Larys became the new Master of Whisperers. In truth, Aemond was plotting with Kristen, and Alicent had her own agenda, but Larys' lie gave him a position of some actual power. As the realm's foremost spy master, and the controller of all flow of information, Larys was now in the perfect position to take the next step. Only first, he needed to take care of his enemies.
Tis the hand's wont to keep a firm grip on things.
Phase 2. Eliminating enemies at court. While Larys Strong is Aegon's new best friend and is owed a debt of silence by the Dowager Queen, he has no other real connections at court to speak of. He used to have a brief alliance with Otto Hightower, but that ended when he chose Alicent and cut off Otto's arrangement with Mysaria. Alicent used him to get her son on the throne, but the moment she did, she started ignoring Larys like the plague. He was winning over Aegon at first, but then he got burned nearly to death, and Aemond became the new Prince Regent. Larys must have thought he could use the same flattery tactics on both of Alicent's children, but Aemond is not Aegon. Just because Larys agreed with his war plans doesn't mean he's willing to raise the guy to Hand of the King, because to Aemond, Larys is a spineless toad. He allowed the jewel of the Riverlands to be plucked by the enemy, and besides, Larys wasn't blood, so he didn't trust him. Aemond dismissed his own mother from the council, and only called Otto back begrudgingly, because at least his counsel and loyalty could be trusted, however sluggish they might be in nature. So with his former backer stepping away from him and his new overseer basically not giving a damn about him, Larys knew that he had only one hope of retaining power, that being Aegon. The king was a pliable young man, as much as he wanted to be perceived differently, so Larys had to ensure his were the only words that mattered to him. He systematically eliminated all those close to Aegon by manipulating things from the shadows. First, he got rid of Otto Hightower as Hand, and got a far worse candidate, Criston Cole, put in his place. He then kidnapped Otto, and kept him in the Black Cells, waiting for the right opportunity to use him. This is why when you see Otto recoiling from the torch burning in his face, because there's usually no light source in the Black Cells. Larys Strong is not just Master of Whisperers, he's also Lord Confessor, which is a glorified term for Master of Torturers. Though the Lord Confessor is traditionally overseen by the King's Justice and is independent of the Gaolers and the Red Keep's dungeon, Larys is also the Master of Whisperers, and we've already seen another Master of Whisperers abuse dungeons as his personal holding cells. In the main series, Varys disguises himself as a Gaoler named Rugen during the reign of King Robert, so he can spy on the prisoners in the dungeons, especially the Black Cells. Larys has clearly taken of those offices we just mentioned under his jurisdiction, as proven by the fact that he delivered blood to a similar cell in episode 2 of season 2. With Otto out of the picture, he needed Alicent gone as well, so he started poisoning Aegon's mind against her while spreading word of her infidelities to the rest of the small council and beyond. When Aemond becomes Prince Regent, Jasper Wilde suggests betrothing Alicent to Dalton Greyjoy, and she rejects it immediately. She shares a look with Cole, and Jasper shares a look with Orwyle and Larys. This is enough to let us know that everyone is aware of their secret relationship, and Gwaine Hightower just brought it out in the open. With Alicent isolated from both her sons, because if the rest know, then Aemond definitely knows, he finally has Aegon's ear all to himself. Aemond took care of dismissing his Kingsguard lackey to the Night's Watch for Larys, and his failed assassination saved him the trouble of having to frame him at some point for something. Aegon's closest circle included his grandfather, brother, and mother, and with all of them away from him, all he has is his loyal friend Larys, and his loyal friend Grand Maester Orwyle. Orwyle looks like a simple old maester, but he's been secretly playing all sides, delivering moon tea to Alicent, and then helping Larys secretly strengthen Aegon. It seems like he's on Larys' side, because the Queen knows nothing of Aegon's recovery, whereas Larys figures out she took moon tea in the same episode Orwyle brings it to her. It can't be a coincidence that they're shown working together, and if Orwyle is indeed cooperating with Larys, then there's a chance he could have told him about Alicent's plan to sail to Dragonstone. Not that it would change his plans a lot, her trying to plead her hypocritical case to Rhaenyra, because isolating Aegon was just step 2. Phase 3. Escaping with the king. With all his enemies out of his way, and Aemon sufficiently angry and guilty enough to avoid his brother's room like the plague, Larys puts Phase 3 of his plan into motion. He tells Aegon that his life is in immediate danger because Aemon, in his impulsiveness, has burnt Sharp Point. He takes a page out of Otto's playbook and makes Aemon the daemon to Aegon's Viserys. Only in this case, the enmity and betrayal are real. Aegon didn't admit it when Aemon asked him, but he remembered Aemon burning him, and though Larys might have taken a shot in the dark by involving Alicent in his lie, that will seem like the truth when Aegon learns that King's Landing fell because his mother and sister yielded the castle to Rhaenyra. Like we said, Orwyle might be a double agent, and if that's the case, Larys will find out about Alicent's movements eventually. But the reason he needs Aegon to himself is not simply for isolation, it's also because he will become the kingmaker in doing so. Aemond is only Prince Regent as long as Aegon is incapacitated, and he isn't all that incapacitated anymore. But he thinks that his dragon is dead, and without a dragon, Aegon knows he has no chance of standing up to Aemond and Vhagar. He's aware enough of his rights as king to use his power and denounce Alicent and Aemond, but Larys steers him off that course and convinces him to escape because it's what's best for business. Turns out Rhaenyra is coming for his head, and being as politically savvy as he is, the Clubfoot must have known that this is what will end the war definitively. The moment he heard Sea Smoke has a rider, he kept Jasper Wild quiet because he didn't want Aemond finding out before he'd made his arrangements. Aemond is the second son of King Viserys, and hated by not just his enemies, but his allies as well. Daeron is Viserys' third son, and less likely to have a strong claim to the throne. Neither of them have children yet, and while Aegon's only remaining child is a daughter, that's more acceptable of a choice for an heir than no heir at all. At the end of the day, male primogeniture favors the eldest son of the ruling noble, and as long as he lives, Aegon will be that. So securing him secures his claim, and that claim now rests in Larys' hands. The show has hinted that he might take Aegon to Braavos, considering that's where he kept his money. The Iron Bank has a long history of bankrolling rival kings, so if the king himself makes an appearance, maybe Aegon could raise an army and a fleet strong enough to press his claim. But he already has allies in Westeros. He just needs to lay low and let things work themselves out. Instead of hiding completely out of sight, Larys will hide Aegon in plain sight by taking him to either Dragonstone or Driftmark. Rhaenyra tried cementing her reign by ambushing his city and capturing it in less than a day. If Aegon does the same to her, then he not only reveals himself, but he also proves his worth as a battle commander, no matter whose idea it really might have been. The clues are already there for those who can see, but Sir Alfred Broom has been feeling treacherous lately, and with both Daemon and Rhaenyra ignoring his advice, he might just turn to a third party. In the books, Larys doesn't accompany Aegon. He sends him off with a knight from his household called Marston Waters, who has kin on Dragonstone and can help Aegon blend with the dragon seeds of the island. In the show, that might be Driftmark, because Dragonseed is much smaller and has far fewer villages that we can see anyway. But just because he keeps Aegon alive right under Rhaenyra's nose, it doesn't mean that Larys' plan ends with that. He needs to also facilitate the king's safe return to the city, and that won't be possible until Rhaenyra's household experiences significant upheavals. To do that, he needs to pick up the reins he put down in King's Landing, and play his greatest game of spy versus spy yet. Phase 4. Sabotaging the Queen and instigating riots. After the fall of King's Landing, Larys Strong disappears from the narrative of Fire and Blood for a while. He resurfaces on the day the riots lead to the storming of the Dragon Pit, and only in words. Mushroom states that when Queen Helaena committed suicide, Larys spread rumors in the city that Rhaenyra had her murdered. This was one of many claims made about Helena's death, and others being that Mysaria had chosen that particular day to reveal the fate of her son Maelor to her, and that Helaena broke after seeing the dead bodies of Rhaenyra supporters, whom she'd hanged on charges of treason. Whatever the true reason of her demise was, she was found impaled on the spikes of the moat outside Maegor's holdfast, and her death inflamed King's Landing into a riot. Helaena had always had a much better reputation with the common folk than her brothers. It's said that King's Landing rose up to grieve their beloved queen and the death of her sons, but in truth, we don't know how Helaena died. The wildly differing accounts of her death from Septon Eustace, Grand Maester Munkin, and Mushroom mean that no one really knew what happened. They were just making their best guesses. Book Helaena was being driven further into madness by her own guilt, but show Helaena has actually become more clear-headed as the episodes have gone by. In the finale, she stood up to Aemond and basically told him he was about to die, so there was no point in her fighting for him anyway. Rhaenyra doesn't hate Helaena. In fact, she's the only half-sibling she likes. She was horrified to learn what Daemon had done to Jaehaerys, and even when Alicent came begging for her life to Dragonstone, Rhaenyra reasserted her positive opinion of Helaena. Since Maelor is not in the show, suicide over grief is out of the window, which leaves only one possibility: murder. And the last time we checked, Larys Strong had personally picked out the household of the Red Keep so only his spies would walk within its walls. Sure, once Miss Arya reaches the capital, she'll have her own spy network set up, but that doesn't mean Larys will lose all of his. His spies know the punishment for betrayal is worse than death itself, because Larys is a master torturer, and he will torture the life out of them. He could try currying favor with Rhaenyra first. Larys always likes testing the waters with every new potential monarch, and he knows how much the princess hates the former hand for his role in the usurpation of her throne. Perhaps he has Otto in a dungeon so he can present him to Rhaenyra as a symbol of his loyalty, a gift to begin her reign with justice. But even if that doesn't happen, he could still get one of his spies to push Helaena out of her window, and pin it on anyone else within the Red Keep, so long as Rhaenyra was implicated. He could also put into his employ the man that will become the reason that every single dragon dies in the capital, the Shepherd. In the books, around the same time that Helena's death occurs, an impoverished priest starts proclaiming the dragons to be the doom of mankind, and inspires thousands to storm the dragon pit. This could be Larys doing, but we think the Shepherd was his own man, because his ravings and rants about the Seven seem genuinely fanatical and not scripted for propaganda. Either way, the reason this ride is important is because it will set the stage for Larys' final play, securing the throne. Phase 5. Installing a puppet regime. In the books, while the Shepherd storms the dragons and Rhaenyra flees the capital, a third party starts raising men for an extremely different purpose. This man, called Sir Perkin the Flea, abruptly announces that his squire Trystane is a bastard son of King Viserys, and that he should be the next ruler from the Iron Throne. He starts knighting anyone who supports Trystane's claim, and soon he has hundreds of men under his command, and he controls 4 of the 7 gates of King's Landing. When Perkin takes Trystane to the Red Keep to claim the throne, he kills the man who opens the gates, kills every other black loyalist, and releases every green prisoner being held in the dungeons. When Trystane is crowned, it's said that Larys Strong comes out of the shadows and takes a place of honor beside him, and for a time, the Clubfoot rules in the name of Tristan Truefire. At the same time, a whore named Essie raises another king to rival Trystane, called Gaemon Palehair, the alleged son of King Aegon II. Essie had a lover by the name of Sylvena Sand, and it looks like this lover might just be Madame Sylvie from the TV show. It's said that Gaemon's court was a whorehouse, and his knights, thieves, and robbers, but his reforms were the most modern of them all, and his lineage was far more believable. Show Viserys might have been a dog with Daemon in their younger days, but book Viserys was pretty devoted to his wives. Him fathering a bastard that didn't get burnt during the Red Sowing is a little suspect if you ask us. Whereas Gaemon, well, we've already seen Gaemon in the first season, and we believe that Larys will be using him to install a puppet regime of his own. When Sir Perkin the Flea was put on trial for raising a pretender king, he blamed Larys for all the plans, but there was no tangible proof of that in the books. The proof has already been given to us in the show, we just haven't looked close enough, we suppose. Remember how Larys recruited a bunch of prisoners, turned them into mutes, and then sent them to Harrenhal to kill his dad and brother for him? Well, do you remember what kind of badges they were wearing on their cloaks? That's right, folks. Larys sports a firefly on his walking stick, but his men are golden fleas, which means he's been planning this takeover with Sir Perkin for a long time. If he takes Aegon and the rest of his family out of the equation, who wouldn't believe his claims that Gaemon is the king's last remaining heir? Everyone knows about Aegon's fondness for whores, and that rat pit in Flea Bottom knew Gaemon was his son. Like Sharako Lohar and Ricalio, the show might merge Gaemon and Trystane, and have the kid act as Larys' paper shield, while he negotiates an end to the war on his own terms. All he ever wanted was real power. Even becoming Hand of the King would suffice, but none of the claimants would give him that position, so Larys will decide to raise a claimant of his own. He'll have his mute fleas raise gutter knights and proclaim an infant bastard the next king of Westeros, so he could finally control all aspects of ruling. If you thought political plots don't feel complicated these days, Larys is the guy to hold your attention, because he might be gross, but he's also a goddamn genius.
We must leave King's Landing quickly, and we will not return for some time.
Marvelous verdict. And speaking of geniuses, we hope you appreciate ours, because that's all the brain we can spare in this video. Let us know your thoughts on a potential Larys coup attempt in the comments below, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Till then, just remember, history is written in fire and blood. If you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.